On today's show, we're going to be talking about a lawsuit putting builders on notice, TREB members being warned regarding sold data, what's going on in the townhouse market, and more. As usual, I'm Dylan. This is my wife, Jenn. Why don't you jump in and start us off?
Sure. The first article that I have today is about a lawsuit that's taken place, a class action suit against Liberty Development Corporation.
Okay.
So Liberty Development Corp is basically going through the Ontario Superior Court of Justice right now. It looks like they're about to go to trial, probably in about 4 months. Reason being that they basically decided that they were going to pull the development of the Cosmo condos in Vaughan.
Okay.
So
I read a little bit about this as well.
yeah, so they had essentially collected deposits. They had signed commitments to all of the people who wanted to buy in this building, in this development, that they were going to go ahead and build this property. And then they've basically changed their mind. Now, there is a lot of speculation as to why this has happened, why they've changed their mind. Some of it being that, they decided that because the houses have gone up, the market's gone up so much since they started, that they're going to cancel it and then relaunch the program, which it's speculative. I don't know if that's true or not. And some of the other comments have been that it's due to the cost of materials and the fact that it's taken so long to get permits and approvals that the financial numbers no longer make sense,
right,
and it's creating financial issues. Now, thing to note here is that they've returned everybody's money. So they're not holding on to these deposits and saying, well, you gave us the deposit and it is what it is. But the buyers are coming forward as a class action and saying, well, you made a commitment and you agreed to this via contract and legally you have to provide us with this, and they're upset about it.
Yeah.
So, what this means for us is that we know that buyers are getting more of a voice out there and they are making more noise when things like this are happening. But also that, this can happen in the development and new build world. And so you do have to be aware as a buyer that the builder can choose not to go ahead with the project, right? The bigger question is this worth a lawsuit?
Yeah, I mean, I feel for them. I hope that they do get some damages out of this. If, I bought a condo and was expecting, I bought it 2 years ago or whatever, and in 3 years I was expecting to move in, and now I find out that that's not going on. And now I'm not in the real estate market anymore. My deposit's being returned. No interest or anything like that. What's that going to do for me when I want to be moved in somewhere? What for my life plans and for my financial reasons, right?
Right, and not to mention the fact that the prices have gone up so much that your affordability
so much harder
is
for
a
them
bigger
now.
issue now as well, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first one. Pretty big topic. I think you got to be aware when you are getting into these sort of projects. Make sure you research the developers. Not to say this is a good or bad developer, but just know that they have a good history, that they have actually continued to complete majority of their projects, if not all of their projects. And since the beginning of the year, about 11 that were proposed actually have been canceled. So the number is not huge, but it does happen. So just be cautious. Yeah. All right. My second article is quite a good title, caught my attention. Waiting for a Toronto house price crash? You'll be disappointed, says RBC.
Yeah.
So this was a poll that was actually completed across Toronto regarding, it was done by RBC, who basically are saying, don't hold your breath, that this is not going to be a situation that happens. Now, we've talked a lot the last few episodes about affordability, so I'm not going to get too deep into this in regard to that conversation. But some of the stats are very interesting and they piqued my attention, so I wanted to share them.
Yeah, let's hear them.
All right. So the first one that stood out to me is that, as we look at everything and all the doom and gloom of the market, obviously the big obvious one is that the average selling price for all housing types across the GTA is up 4.7% year over year from last year.
Yeah.
So even the concept that the market is going down is pretty mistaken, right? I think there's a lot of media manipulation around that.
Yeah.
And then, we were up 8.5% in August for home sales this year over last year. So that's a big jump, right?
Yep.
So that was a good number. The ones that were more fun, though, is that more than a quarter of the people who took this survey basically said that they would actually like to see an outright price crash. So they would want to see 30% or more of a drop, which I thought was kind of a funny stat because, who wants to see the market go down that much? The last time that happened was in the early 90s, and that was when the government hiked up the interest rates to 17 and 18%, right? So, I thought it was an interesting stat that people were interested in that because, the mindset around that is questionable to me, but also,
Yeah.
I think that's how frustrated people are with their current market, that they literally are kind of just like, just let it collapse.
Yeah.
Right? So Aaron, what are your thoughts on that?
I'd say show me somebody that wants to see that kind of a crash on the market. I'll show you somebody that's not in the market, because anybody that's in that, obviously, we don't want to see that for any of our homeowners, for ourselves. If I was an investor that just made a lot of money in another sector and I had a ton of cash, yeah, I'd love to see a 35% drop in the real estate market and come in and clean house and retire early. So it is what it is. If you take a look at even just the prices where we were last year to where we are now, we've already taken a significant hit. It's not to say that I don't think we'll see more adjustments possibly coming. We don't know what's going on with NAFTA and all that stuff, and if we have any big unemployment in Ontario, we could see some changes there. But otherwise, I don't think that we're going to see another major adjustment like that unless something big happens there in another sector. And
unless a major influence. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always funny, and I would be curious to know, because they don't really state it in here. It's just a recent poll by Angus Reid. I'm not quite sure who Angus Reid is, but it doesn't say who they polled or what demographic or anything like that. So, always a good thing to read when you're looking at statistics.
Yeah, and just last statement before we move on, we're in a pretty nice balanced market now. I don't think we need to be in a rush to change that. I don't want it to skyrocket up, and I don't want it to tank down. Let's move along nicely, and I think that'll be best for everyone.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, do not want a 30% crash, that's for sure. All right, my final article today is about nosy landlords.
All right.
So, great article. Basically talking about the fact that as the demand for rental properties has been increasing so rapidly, landlords are getting pickier, and they have the right to, because they have people literally getting into multiple offers at this point on their properties, right? They're not kind of tied to, hey, who's going to want to take it. But what's happening is a lot of tenants are actually starting to get upset and feeling that there's a violation of their privacy in regard to how much data is being asked for in order to qualify for a property.
Okay.
So, for example, asking for bank statements for the past couple of months, to show that you have income, asking for tax assessments, asking for proof that you have a certain amount of money as cash in a bank account, all that sort of stuff. The usuals are still standard, your credit report, all of that. They're not really harping on that. What they're harping on is the additions.
Yeah.
And the fact that not only now are people being asked to pay additional months up front at times, which technically you can't do anyway. But it is common out there. Now they're also being asked to prove well beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I guess the biggest question for us is, at what level does that become a privacy conversation in regard to how much can a landlord actually ask for, because it's their property. Yeah. Right? And where do we draw the line on that?
Yeah. So I know where I stand on this. I'm okay with it in the overall act. I think the big thing in Ontario is that tenants are highly favored in the relationship between the landlord and tenant. And I think that the landlord has every right to make sure they're getting a qualified person when they're letting them into their house. I'm not talking about, large apartments. I'm talking about, residential, less than 6 units type situation. And you know what? If you can show me pay stubs because you've got a regular paying salaried job, that's fine. I don't need to see any tax assessments or anything like that. But if you own your own business, which a lot of people do these days, then that's the only real proof that I can look at, because everything else you could just make up because it's your business. So tax assessment's something that I know and I can look at. And at that point, if you're like, hey, if you show me like a bank statement showing that you have this money in your account, then that makes me feel better too. I'm okay with them asking for it. If the tenant doesn't want to provide it, I mean, ultimately they want to put forward the best application, the strongest application they can, and if they're resistant to do it or they're unable to do it, I mean, that's typically a sign for the landlord of why I don't want that person as my tenant.
Right. Okay.
So that's where I stand.
I take a little bit of a different take on this one.
Okay.
Not too far off. I'm on the same page, but I do disagree a little bit. I do have to say, I think that there should be a standard of what needs to be provided. And I can understand that, sole proprietor, especially in our industry, us writing a letter of employment about ourselves is ridiculous, right? Yeah. So people can lie, people manipulate. There has to be a burden of proof, 100%. But to ask for someone's bank account balance, I mean, if they can show that they make a certain amount of money on paper, why are we asking for additional proof, right?
Yeah, if there's other proof elsewhere, I'm okay with it. I'm just saying if it's something that you can't be taken as fact, then
Now, do I think tenants should get as up in arms as they do about it? No. Not really. If you want a place to live, these are the hoops you're going to have to jump through, right? You have to provide a lot of information to get a mortgage as well.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Same with working with a realtor, you got to provide a lot of private details. So at the end of the day, should you be super upset about it? No. Do we push it a little bit harder when we know we have options on the landlord side? Yeah, I think we do. And I would, again, I don't want to push for regulation, and I know we have the new standard lease, but it would be nice to set some clear rules in regard to what does need to be provided and what doesn't for privacy reasons in that regard in this sort of situation.
Yeah. I agree. It's okay. Is that your 3?
That's my 3.
All right, so I'm going to jump right in. Maybe you've seen this already, but Microsoft is moving their headquarters to Toronto, currently in Mississauga. I think this is a great thing. So here's a little bit of the information that I got. Microsoft is setting up a new state-of-the-art headquarters, 132,000 square feet at 81 Bay Street, with a move-in date of 2020. And we've got a quote here from John Tory. This announcement by Microsoft offers yet more evidence of the strength of Toronto as a global technology center and as a desirable home for major corporations. By choosing Southcore as its new home, Microsoft is embracing one of the hottest new areas of downtown, and Toronto welcomes them with open arms.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, it ties right into what we were talking about in Tuesday's session in regard to the commercial space being basically picked up and the tech sectors and the e-commerce sectors being such a big factor in that. I'm excited for it. I love the direction Toronto's headed in right now. I mean, we got Google, now we got Microsoft. Hopefully Amazon picks us. It's just, that can only mean great things for the city.
I agree. Keep bringing them in.
Keep bringing them. I love it.
Yeah. And so, looking at the Toronto board and what it might mean for real estate, I mean, it's people maybe moving from Mississauga to Toronto for a closer commute. It doesn't do much for us overall. But
it's not a new industry moving in, so we're not going to maybe get that influx of new people, but I'm sure it'll open more job opportunities.
More jobs, bring them in.
For sure.
All good things. The next one is talking about the disbursement of sold data, which has been big in the news the last week and a half now. Yeah. And so the Toronto Real Estate or TREB realtors got a notice in our email this morning.
Did.
Just giving us the warning that we have to make sure that we're posting accurate sold data, because there's a specific story that happened. There was a home in Scarborough that sold for was listed at 3.1. Yeah, 3.1, and got reported sold for $1. Yeah. So what happened here was the sellers didn't want their price being advertised and released to everybody. The deal is with the distribution of this sold data, it has to be on websites with a password. So essentially you have to create a login to an account on any of these sites where the companies are offering sold data. But I mean, that's the same as like logging into your Google account or anything. Really, anybody can still do it. So anyways, they didn't want their sold price posted. They asked the realtor to post it as $1. We're not allowed to do that. Right. Realtor got in trouble. Everybody got the warning about it. And then the price got updated to the $2.98 million that it actually sold for.
Okay.
So what are your thoughts on this?
There's a couple of questions that it brings to mind right away. One being the privacy issue, going back to that topic, with the seller. Is that something, now that sold data is available, as realtors, we have to learn to explain it and say it has to be password protected. People have to register to get the information through, whatever site it is, so-and-so. But beyond that, do sellers have the right to say, hey, I don't want that data distributed? And if so, then what do we do? How do we solve that problem? Because now it's allowed to get published, right? Legally. Yep. So
published in the sense behind the password, whatever. But I mean, it's still
out there.
It's accessible by everybody.
Yeah. And so if that's the case, then does the seller even have the right to ask that question or say, well, no, I don't want it? I would be curious to know, I don't know if it states it in there, like, did that agent get fined or was it just a warning?
No, I think it's just a warning.
Just a warning, yeah. So I think going forward, all it means is that, I don't think that you can protect that information as much. Yeah. I'm not so sure why the seller would be that concerned about it being promoted or told realistically. I've never really understood that. But people have different thoughts on these things.
Yeah, and so I maybe a little bit more on the other side of that argument from you. I do know we have had people that say, we wish this to remain private. We've had things released or an agent advertised one of our listing sold prices without anybody's permission in the past, like years ago, and the seller obviously was upset, saying, hey, we don't want everybody knowing what we made or didn't make on our house or what we sold it for or whatever. Right. It is usually because of a relationship that the seller has with somebody else. Yeah. Whatever that relationship may be, that would be why they don't want them knowing
Right.
the extent of their business, right?
I can understand that for sure.
And same thing, we've run into this before where we had a seller that didn't want their name posted on the listing. And so we had it where, as soon as you submitted an offer, we put that in so it was specific just to who we were working with.
Yeah.
And of course, TREB told us we can't do that. It has to be in there.
Yeah.
And so same thing, just, inform that, hey, fix that. And that's
Right.
what's going on. But I think the issue still remains that there are some people out there that would like to have a little bit more privacy, and that's kind of drifting away.
Yeah, and I think the end of the day, the solution is for the general public. Ask the questions. If if you feel, hey, I don't want this, just simply say, is this something we can keep private or not? And as the agent, know your information so you can answer the questions and have that conversation up front.
Exactly. Avoid the problem before it arises.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so for the final thing for today, I just wanted to take a look at townhome prices.
All right.
So we've spoken a few times now about how well the condo market's doing. And ultimately, where do you go after you sell your condo? A townhouse is pretty much the place to be these days. The detached, some people would make the jump right to the detached home in the past.
Yeah.
That gap is just a little too big still, I think, unless something else is going on. So I'm taking a look at some of the townhouse prices as they were most recently in August compared to what they were at the peak of the market last year.
Okay.
So I've got...
So you're thinking like April, May of last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've got 5 areas that I'm going to talk about, and out of 5 of them, 4 of them are more affordable now than they were then.
Yeah.
Right?
That makes sense.
Kind of nice. You're going to get a townhouse at a cheaper price than you would have before, and you've made more money on your condo.
I'm curious to know which one went up.
Yeah,
Because where is that?
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start with Toronto. This is all of Toronto, East, West, and Central. At the peak, we were looking at 920,000. Oh, sorry. At the peak, we were looking at 1,054,000 for your average townhouse.
Yeah.
Just last month, 920,000.
Now, just to clarify, these are freehold townhouses.
Freehold
right?
townhouses, not
condo.
condos. Yeah,
Okay.
freehold
Yeah.
townhouses.
Yeah.
So you're saving about 130,000 on average compared to what you would have spent last year.
That's a good drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if you can't afford the city, you go a little bit further north.
Sure.
Let's check out Richmond Hill. Richmond Hill is now at 801,000, and before the drop, 1,038,000.
Yeah, I remember them being crazy expensive. Yeah.
So you're looking at about 238,000 of a discount on your townhouse now.
Yeah, wow, Richmond Hill got hit hard.
Yeah, they got hit hard.
Did.
And now you can't do Richmond Hill, still a little pricey. Let's come up to Aurora and take a look. Now, currently, 717,000 for your average Aurora townhouse.
Yeah.
At the peak, 866,000.
Okay, so yeah.
Still a nice discount.
Yeah.
We take a look at Pickering. We're now, because again, can't go north. Well, at least for most of our guys, then we end up going east before we go west. But I mean, that's just based on who you're working with.
Yeah.
And so as we've seen that kind of exodus out east, because a nice easy commute into the city, both with a GO line and everything. Anyways, Pickering currently 627,000 on average.
Okay.
Was 675,000. So a little tighter.
Yeah.
They've maintained their prices pretty well.
They've held pretty well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they only dropped by what, about 50,000?
About 50,000 current from right now till before.
Yeah.
They've also gone up a little bit in the past few months. So
Okay.
yeah,
So they're growing pretty well then.
they're growing pretty well.
All right.
Now we take a look at Ajax. This is number 5. This is the one that went up.
What?
Currently 675,000.
Okay.
At the time 638,000.
That's wild.
So out east doing very well price wise.
Yeah.
Can still get a deal in Pickering, surprisingly, and Ajax, they've got that bump. Again, we're still looking at, I guess just that change. There's been a few months where the prices have varied a little bit more, but ultimately, if you're looking at right now to back then, it's kind of what we're looking at.
And I wonder why. Like, do you have any thoughts on why? I mean, Pickering and Ajax specifically staying so much stronger. Is it because they just didn't inflate as much, do you think? Or do you think it's just that more people are going east now?
Yeah, I think a lot more people are going east. But also, just if you look at their prices, they're still below what the average townhouse costs in Aurora and Richmond Hill. So why wouldn't people go there? There's more of a ceiling for what people can afford to pay.
So it's the affordability factor.
Exactly, right? Like
yeah.
those can go up more. So even if you're looking at some of these ones that are down now, you know that at some point we're going to get back to where they were.
Yeah.
Whether it's a long term or a shorter term, you're still going to spend $1 million for a townhouse in Richmond Hill at some point.
We're going to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've seen people doing it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it will come back around. Yeah. Anyways, I thought those were very interesting numbers.
That's cool. That is interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that. Like,
Yeah.
if you had had me guess before you read them, Ajax would not have been my pick. Maybe Pickering,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't have gone for Ajax.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And Ajax, there is a ton of new townhome development out there.
Yeah.
There is some newer stuff versus some of
a lot of stuff getting built on the east side. Yeah, for sure.
Very much so. Yeah, so there you have it. That's our show for today. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, the links are in the description below.
Yep, don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you follow us so you don't miss any more of our episodes that are going to be coming up every Tuesday and Thursday morning. And aside from that, thanks for tuning in again and have a great day.